Hey guys, Tammy here, and in this video, I'm going to talk about the number one way to end your suffering in child custody. Now, I know that child custody can be really hard. It can be a very long process when you're dealing with a high conflict ex. You've got a younger child and you've got this very long road in front of you, and it feels like every single day is a struggle. Let me just real quick remind you, if you like these videos and you find them helpful, please don't forget to hit like on this video and also subscribe to my channel so that you get notified as new videos are released. Let's talk about suffering. This is not a subject any of us like or go, yay, let me suffer, right? Especially when you're dealing with a high conflict person on the other side and you feel like they are just bent on making sure that you suffer, that's their number one goal. I talk to a lot of parents who say, I feel like the only purpose the other parent has in any of the things that they're doing in manipulating the kids or trying to push me out or whatever they're doing is to try to make me suffer. That can be really, really difficult when you feel like that's almost somebody's life agenda is your suffering. Here's what can start to shift that for you. You can't look at this as just suffering for the sake of suffering itself. You have to look at this as having meaning, as having a purpose in your life, or figure out how you can use that suffering. Let's take the child custody situation, okay? Let's say that you have someone who's just attacking you over and over, okay? When I went through my divorce 17 years ago, I was totally blamed for everything, okay? My ex did not have a great relationship with our kids at that point. Both the kids, one of our sons was teenager, and, that can always be a difficult time to bond with a child and all that kind of thing and maintain your relationship with them. And I think dad just didn't know how and wasn't equipped to do that. And instead of him taking responsibility for the fact that he needed to learn how to bond with his teenager and be able to have interaction, he essentially said, oh, everything is Tammy's fault. So it was just a way of being able to blame me for everything. And then, for me, it's like, why can't he just do what he needs to do? Why can't he just be a parent and step up and show up 50% of the time and pay the support that I need to keep a roof over their head and, do what needs to be done? I mean, I was working full time. I was, doing a lot of the heavy lifting on the parenting, and I felt like I was doing my part and trying to, keep his relationship with them and maintain that connection and all that kind of thing. But it just seemed like he was bent on blaming me for everything, talking bad about me to the kids and just doing everything he could to make sure that I was suffering and not, able to enjoy my life, so to speak. When I look back on that now, I am, like I said, about 17, 18 years down the road or whatever now from that. And the interesting part of that is I would not be doing what I'm doing now. I wouldn't be sitting here recording this video for you and talking to you about it if I had not walked through that suffering. But when you're in it, it's really hard to see how that's going to turn out for your good. It's really hard to see how that can be used as a positive in your life. And so you're suffering through this child custody situation and these difficulties and these trials of all of this. But what if I said to you, the things you're going to learn in this are going to enable you to raise a child that's then going to go on and be hugely happy and successful and be able to create a great marriage because they're going to have learned through watching you and through your parenting of them and the way you've taught them about relationships from your own experience, that they're not going to suffer that. Would that be worth it to you? I think for a lot of us parents, it would. Or what if I said the things that you're learning in this situation that you're suffering through are going to enable you to have better people skills and advance your career because of the skills that you've learned in dealing with this high conflict person, or maybe you end up doing some kind of career or coaching in, child custody or divorce, or you work as a paralegal, or you work as a therapist, or you become a child custody evaluator, or all these different ways in which these experiences can be used, whether you're working in this industry or not. These types of situations where you're dealing with people and relationships is huge. This can have a huge impact on people's happiness, on your happiness, on your children's happiness, on people around you, on, people that you share your experiences with, people that you support down the road. And, when you're in it, you can't see all of those things. That's why it feels meaningless, and it just feels like, oh, I'm just suffering for the sake of suffering and there's nothing to this. Then it just feels meaningless, and it feels like, why do I have to do this? But if I could pick you up and move you 5, 10, 20 years down the road and say, because of this experience, look at all the blessings that were created in your life from this, then you could go back into that suffering and bear up under it a lot better. If you knew that was going to enable you to have a positive impact on somebody else who's in a narcissistic relationship, or help them get out, or maybe it's going to help you help your child to avoid a narcissistic relationship. Maybe it's going to enable you to deal with these type of people in the workplace and be able to better support people around you who are blaming themselves for other people's behaviors. There's so many different ways that this can come back and can benefit you down the road, because honestly, everybody deals with crisis in their life. Everybody. Right now, the crisis you're dealing with is a divorce and child custody situation, right? I assume you're in a crisis point with it, because if you weren't, you probably wouldn't be watching this video. If you're up at 2 a.m. Googling and that's how you found me, I'm guessing you're in a crisis in some way in your child custody situation. All of these things have meaning because they're going to serve you in some other way down the road. You have to have faith in that. And faith is what? The substance of things not seen. If we could know and say, okay, God, show me how all this is going to help me. Show me the life this is going to create for me. I always say, like, my second marriage to Thomas, I could not have had if I hadn't had the first marriage. Now, ironically, if you haven't seen previous videos, Thomas had an accident and passed away a few months ago. And it's been devastating. It's been a devastating loss for me. But in some ways, I'm able to have hope because I had a previous marriage that didn't work, and then I had this marriage that was a good marriage, right? So if I choose to have another marriage, I can have a good marriage again if I choose to do that and I choose to go down that road. And I know that because of my past experiences. But when you haven't moved from it far enough from the current experience you're in to be able to see how any of that works in your favor or to your good, then it can feel like it's just pure suffering in that moment. We're all going to suffer. We're all going to have trials. The real question is, how are you going to use it? Are you going to dig in and figure out how to make the most of this suffering? Because the suffering is the growth point. You don't grow without suffering. You don't change without suffering. I remember my therapist saying to me once, Tammy, nobody changes without a crisis. And it's so very true. The suffering is required for the growth. You don't just get growth arbitrarily. It's kind of like when you go to the gym and you lift weights. Well, if you go to the gym and you don't lift any weights, you're not going to get the muscle that you're going to get from lifting the weights. Why? Because that resistance is required to cause that muscle to grow. And this suffering is required to develop you as a person and to prepare you for the things that are coming down the road in your life and the things that you're going to be able to accomplish, the things you're going to be able to conquer. The skill set that's being developed in you right now is going to enable you to make those leaps and bounds in your life in the future. But you have to have faith, and you have to have some meaning and find some meaning in the suffering. If you've ever heard of Viktor Frankl, he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, which is a great book if you haven't read it. And he essentially was in Nazi concentration camps. And he was able to find hope every day, even being in such a horrendous, awful situation and seeing thousands and thousands of people around him die. He was able to maintain his hope by finding meaning in his suffering. And, he made it out of there. He wrote the book. He's done all these things that have impacted tons of people and helped them in their own life. And he couldn't have done any of that if he had given up. And if he hadn't found meaning in his suffering, he would have given up. You have to try to know that there is some purpose, there is some way that this is going to be used, but your job right now is to put your head down and make a decision that you're going to push through this, and that whatever suffering you're going to go through, you're going to make sure that you get the goods from it, right? We're going to get the fruit from it. We're going to get the muscle. If I go to the gym and I lift tons of weights, but I didn't get the muscle, that would be suffering through those exercises for nothing, right? We do it so that we can get that end result of the muscle. You have to push through your suffering so that you can get the end result that's coming for you at the end, which is the growth and the development of you as a person and your character. So if you'd like to learn more about my coaching services, please go to divorceuniversityonline.com/VIP-coaching. You can book a free strategy session with me and learn more about my child custody coaching services. I'll see y'all next week.